Thank you for taking time out to join us once again for our weekly webinar sessions. I guess I know most of you know me, but for those who don't, I'm Jyotishna and I'll be moderating today's webinar session. Colleagues, today's PPT session is on strengthening tourism linkages, one of my favorite topic of discussion. Due to the nature of the tourism industry, one of the best ways to enhance and retain the benefits of tourism is to strengthen the linkages between tourism sectors and the local economy. Tourism cannot operate on its own and relies on other sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, transportation, and so forth. So there is a need to create linkages between these sectors. Tourism planning requires the integration of the tourism industry into other sectors. So colleagues, today, we have in a panel to share with us key constraints that underpin strengthening tourism linkages with other sectors. We will learn from successful partnerships that support and strengthen linkages with tourism industry, and we will discuss ways in which the critical support industries and sectors can meet and address challenges and opportunities to better inform future development in tourism. Thanks. Before I introduce the panel, may I once again request everyone to turn on their cameras for a photo session, please. We will put this up on our social media page. Okay. Just give a few minutes for everyone to turn on the cameras, please. Okay, everyone. Okay, thank you so much. So colleagues, let me introduce the panel for today's session. We have with us MSME Fiji Director, Mr. Yusufo Korondimuri. We have WOW Dance Fiji Director and Fiji Islands Dance Association Director, Ms. Sachiko Soro. Fiji Agri-Tourism Working Committee Chair, Mr. Savenada Wanginibete. Singapore Studios Creative and Managing Director and VT Association of Visual Arts Co-Chair, Ms. Maria Rovo. We have Waikau Lodge Director, Ms. Elenwa Nimadere with us. So big level to the panelists for taking out time to share with us your knowledge and experience. Colleagues, this is a 2-hour session. The first hour will be contribution from the panelists on the topic, and the second hour will be a Q&A session. We want to make this a very interactive session, so please feel free to share your views. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box as we go along. Also note this session is recorded and we will later share it on the MCCCC website. So I won't take much of your time. So I'll introduce the first panelist, who is our MSME Fiji Director, Mr. Yusufo Korondimuri. He's from Nawi village in the Kandrobe. This is his 4th year in government. He also has 12 years private sector experience, mainly in the South Pacific, Solomon Islands, Tonga, and PNG, in the areas of business development, project management, and sales and marketing. So he'll be presenting on lessons learned, better inform and strengthen MSc development in tourism. Mr. Yusufo, thank you for joining us today. Mr. Yusufo, you have the floor.
Oh, okay. Jyotishna, I'm not so sure whether it's from my end or yours, but it's breaking up. So I'm not so sure whether the listeners or the viewers out there will be able to hear us properly. But anyway, can you hear me?
Yes, Jyotishna? I can hear you, sir. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Can I go ahead now? Or?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Once again, Bulo Vinaka, everyone, to all the listeners out there. I've been asked to briefly explain what MSME or the government has been doing with regards to MSME in relation to the project that we've been doing into the community with regards to community development and also on ecotourism. Now, first of all, I would just like to describe MSME. This is with our ministry, Ministry of Trade, Cooperatives. It used to be Ministry of Trade Tourism before, but now it's Ministry of Trade, Cooperatives, and MSMEs. We have been doing a lot of work together with the tourism team with regards to developing ecotourism concept out there in the rural areas. First of all, with regards to the work that we have been doing, it's one particular grant that we have. It's called IHRDP. IHRDP is an ILO program. It's called Integrated Human Resources Development Program that we partnered together with Ministry of with Tourism Department and ensure that we develop ecotourism out there in the rural areas. The main aim of this grant is in terms of poverty alleviations in rural communities. Poverty alleviations, and also in terms of employment creations in rural communities. Now, some of the works that we have been doing, we have funded some of the ecotourism project. One of them is the Namosi Eco Retreat, and also the Mboma or Tavoro or Ward of Tavoro ecotourism in Taveuni. Now, the strategy in which the government is looking at is there's been a lot of during the COVID. There's a lot of projects that were a lot of ecotourism that they have not developed, and this is where. Hello, Jatisna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so this is what we've been doing with the community. This grant over here is 1/3, 2/3 contributions. There's 100,000 that the applicants they can apply for, and we work together with the cooperatives out there in the community. Some of the lessons learned is that what we've noticed is most of the time the projects that we're doing is on the top down approach, but what we are looking at is looking at from the bottom up approach in working together with the communities in developing ecotourism in Fiji. And some of the awarenesses that we've been carrying out into the communities is basically hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Jatisna, hello.
Hello, sir, you can hear me?
Oh, okay. Sorry, this is breaking off from it's been breaking off from my end.
It's simple. We'll let you know if we can't hear it from our end.
Hello?
You can go ahead. You just keep continuing. We'll let you know if you're breaking up from our end. Naka.
I think, Alice, we have lost him.
We can go ahead to the next speaker.
Next,
Judicial.
yeah, yes, of course. So we will invite, so colleagues, our next speaker is Fiji Agri-Tourism Working Chair, Mr. Savinada Venibete. He has a bachelor's degree in economics and accounting from USP and experience in business development analyst and consultant. He is a chairman of Fiji Agri-Tourism Working Committee. He has been principal consultant for Resilience Consultant Services. He has vast experience in Pacific horticulture and agriculture market access plus, market access working committee member and member of Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. So I'll invite Mr. Savanada if he can share with us on agritourism development, please.
Linda, moderator. Good morning to all. Tourism development is still exploring ways to find itself in the legislation and as a pathway to our farmers. The mix between agriculture and tourism has been what we have been trying for years. And practical problems throughout the marriage. So, participants, ladies and gentlemen, as the chairman of the working committee, I'm invited to just speak on the experiences and the constraints and opportunities that we have on the linkages. So I will be very brief, because only 10 minutes, and I will work on that. But I want to take this time to apologize for not really participating well, and thank Marita for standing up for the agritourism in Fiji. And for us, we are private sector driven. We are not public, not government driven. So there were some differences between us. So we actually could not facilitate our role. But hopefully, with this government, we were able to do. Now, for the agriculture, agritourism, we have actually two issues that we have in the experience. We have the farmer. Part of this operations, we have two issues. One is the business compliance, which is really the business compliances under the Ministry of External Trade Cooperatives and SMEs. And secondly is the Turkey Trust Board. We have the tourist developments. Now, when I talk about these are the requirements that these two ministries need when you talk about a farmer. So you see, we have moved away from just a normal farmer into a platform where we need to comply to other stakeholders' policies. And secondly, is when you talk about infrastructure compliance, that is another issue that we're looking at in the town councils. If you have your farms are within the town council vicinity, and also the town and country planning. So it's quite a big scope of development that we're looking at, not just a normal farming activity. So this is where we actually come in and work together. So we will try to unfold what we need to do. So when you look at the first one, the sharing of experiences, for us in the past 8 years, so from 2018 to now, we're looking at the setting up of the agriculture system is one of the issues that we need to experience. We had experiences in the past. We could not comply completely with the compliance part because of the issues that we have. Still not been covered till today. Now, what we need to do is to look at our agritourism in terms of the guest-friendly issues, friendly use of the guest participation in our farms. We do need to get our guests into our farms, so we need to clear that and make it a good experience for our guests. And also, when you look at the export cultural traditional food systems, that's another issue that we experience. That we need to offer good cultural food system. Most of the guests are complaining that most of our food are just like other food, and we are missing out the traditional foods. So these are some of the issues that we had in the past, and we could improve on that. Also, we're looking at the the traditional agriculture museum, so to speak. These are some of the things that we wanted to do. So like looking at the tools, how our forefathers were doing the agriculture, what tools they use. We don't have any museum in Fiji. We were wanting to do one, we could not, but hopefully with this new reviving of our emphasis on the government, we'll be able to do one. To get all those. Remember, we have other cultural foods, like we have people at Goma who have that fish pan. Those are some of the things that we can do to highlight our experiences in the sector. Now, the constraints, to go to constraints, one of the biggest constraints we have was trying to get a liability covered. I don't know whether the association has covered this, but for us, the guests they are vulnerable to accidents, and we need to cover their lives when they come to our farms. Even some having horse riding and all the stuff. So those are all the liabilities that we face. So for a farmer, to cover the liability is a big issue. So we need to come together collectively how we can work on this liability issue to give a very guest injury-free experiences in our various farms. One of the other challenges we have was something that just launched last year, was the OCA, or the Our Community Agriculture. So this, the system that was launched by the previous government, they were trying to take their crops to the hotels. But agritourism is actually bringing the guests to the farm. So that's where we were quite not agree with that. So that is one of the issues that really has killed the spirits, because we are just duplicating what other private sectors are doing as a supplier. We're talking about Just Farm, we're talking about other big suppliers. So we're just duplicating what they're doing, and we're using our small sets. So if we can, one of the constraints we need to look at the OCA policy by the agriculture, how best we can tackle that. One of the other constraints that they want to see is the TLTB tourism policies, where our farmers to be upgraded to tourism level. That's one of the issues. And we had a few sitting with TLTB in 2019 trying to resolve this, but we could not really come to a proper leveraging area. So these are some of the constraints that we have. We can discuss later as we have the question and answer period. We can talk about it. Can I go to the next one, which is the opportunities of strengthening linkages to tourism industry. Now, one of the things that we're looking at to strengthen is actually the governing body. One of the objectives of the working committee was to establish a body that will run the tourism. We were planning not to use a government body, just like the Fiji Export Council, but something that is generated from the private sector. The main reason to open up the opportunity for private sector to get other assistance rather than more into the government person. So that is one of the things that we need to do to strengthen now is actually to get that governing body to work on the policies and looking at what the people wants that they can do tourism. One of the opportunities we're going to look at also strengthen is the harmonizing of the land issues between agriculture and the tourism sector. As I mentioned earlier, TLTB has got its own sets of policies for tourism and very high premium. And our farmers, our farmers, their capability, they cannot afford that. So we have to come to a mix where we'll find alternative subsistence to pick up the the farmers to get those harmonization of the land issues. Thirdly, one of the issue also is identifying infrastructural development and seeking support from government incentive and possibly other SME donors. We had actually had this on our table in 2018, where we tried to get assistance for farmers. Let the farmer deal with his own operation, but the working committee to find funds to build the accommodation, the kitchen, the souvenir shops. Let there not be any bother to the farmers. So farmers can do their own operation in the farm, while the other infrastructures are added in to help them as we go along. So those are the very simple areas that I want to discuss of the three that we need to do. Maybe I just put on one good case study. Maybe it's not really good, but for me, this is what I've gone through in my experience. We have been for just farm for 20 years, and this is what we do. We have root crops and vegetables. We supply exports and also local. But for our Lesuba, we have 3 acres. But we're doing root crops, 200 acres Sawani land. But on our 3 acres, we got the hydroponic, which is the biggest in the Pacific. In that hydroponics, it is a 6-span 2 by 40 by 80 meters square. And we have, in one time, we have about 40,000 crops, 40,000 lettuces at one time. And we also harvest around about 8,000 a week. So that is what we have at any time. And it's it's 12 months crop because it's a hydroponic. And it comes every. We have another big one at Nusori, but we have actually exhausted that list, so we've closed it down, and we are now working with Antareva to get another big one down in London because of the climate. They have about 16 degrees to 80 degrees, and that is really a good year-round crops, including vine crops and other crops. So that's what we do. And unfortunately, we could not practice ecotourism. For some of the things, misunderstanding that we have, our role was to get the tourists to the farm, but our ministry says, no, you have to just improve your crops and take it to the hotel. So that's where we were different in the policies. So our farm actually could not start in 2019, even though we made another 300,000 improvement from in our Lesuba farm to cater for the oncoming guests, but we could not facilitate the ecotourism demand because of the policies. But we have to look at the insurance issues. We have to look at other issues before we actually come into play. So there you have a small. Our adventure to ecotourism was really not that far, but we need to improve if we really want to go far on that issue. So that is just basically a small case study of those farms when you look at into the Fiji Agritourism Working Committee. So with that, just for a thought, and I'll be welcome to answer any questions later in the session.
Thank you, Mr. Awenganibete, for sharing the constraints and opportunities in the agritourism space. The ministry is also currently working with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fiji Agriculture Association in this space. And in the coming months, we look forward to partnering with the farmers and the hotels in trying to, one of the things you specified is guest farm tours. I think we will be working in this space in the coming months. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and views with regards to agritourism. Colleagues joining us next from WOW Dance and Fiji Islands Dance Association is Director Ms. Sachiko Soro. She is a graduate from the University of Auckland with a Bachelor of Music in Composition, a Bachelor of Performing Arts in Dance, and a postgraduate honors in Dance Studies. Ms. Sachiko founded the Vow Dance Company in 2007 to pursue her passion and spread the magic of music and dance from the Pacific across the globe. Ms. Sachiko Soro, you have the floor now, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Bulavanaka, everyone. Morning. Sorry. Yes, I don't rate my qualifications at university very highly, but I do rate we're trying to bridge the gap between Fiji tourism and the arts members of the Fiji arts community very highly, because it's been a hard road, as we could say, but we learn every day. So thank you so much for having me here today. I think personally from me, I think that as an artist in Fiji, sorry, excuse the noise in the background, there's dancers preparing for the Fringe Festival. As an artist working in Fiji, the biggest opportunity is within the tourism industry. For example, with Vow, we started in 2007 in Suva, and we sort of had reached the ceiling of what we were able to serve the corporate community in terms of events. And our whole core guiding philosophy is to provide sustainable career paths for Fijian artists. Because we believe in empowering Fijian youth to create their own performing arts. And if we want to be able to create high quality performing arts, they need to be able to do that full time. And in order for them to be able to do that full time, they need to be sustainably employed financially. So that was the reason that with tourism being the biggest foreign exchange earner in Fiji's economy, we decided, okay, the only way that we are going to be able to employ these youth to make great Fijian performing arts is to be able to tap into the tourism industry in some way in order to employ the artists. So that was sort of like our whole approach in moving from Suva to Nandi. And all of our artists moved with us from Suva to Nandi, and we've only been in Nandi for 7 years. So it's only a very short time to try and understand this like giant that sort of like operates and runs Fiji. Some of the challenges that we've had in bridging the gap with the tourism industry. It's interesting. It's a very different kettle of fish to the arts industry, and we operate and think in very different ways. Sort of like the tourism industry can be very metric focused, and then the arts can be very sort of like experiential, sort of like focused. But it's interesting the way those two interact. And I've seen like in just our interaction, like the difference between like different management that you might, encounter in different kinds of hotels. So, and their different philosophies around what they would like their guests to experience. So for example, just recently we had like a big national sort of like event for the tourism industry. And one of the managers like from overseas asked us, oh, can you do a fire dance for this thing? And I said, I'm really sorry, because it's like a national tourism event. We won't be able to do a fire dance because it's actually not a traditional Fijian dance form, and we feel it might be inappropriate. But if you want, I can put you in touch with another fire group, or we could do something else that you might, like, and then, but we were in a position, because we have, established our own venue, that we are in a position to be able to say, we can't do this, I'm sorry. Whereas like another smaller group where they're really financially dependent on those shows might be like, oh my God, I'll just do it. You know what I mean? So you have like sort of maybe people that are less culturally aware dictating what gets performed. And I think that nowadays we sort of like think that tourists don't know, they're not culturally aware, but they are, like, so I think that we need to sort of like give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that they are looking for like more authentic sort of experiences. On the other hand, I've found that like overseas sort of like European, like from Europe, not Australia, New Zealand, managers do really, really support Fijian artists in that they will pay them well and not try and haggle the price. And they will give them support and like, proper changing areas and like, really try and like look after the artist more. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, yes. Just stop me if I'm not making sense or if I'm, yes. Whereas like a lot of the local tour, like hotel managers and stuff, they just do not value the arts. They will try and pay you like the bottom dollar, just because, like, you know, performing arts is still not recognized as a career and a professional industry here in Fiji, which has a lot to do with our outdated education system that still fails to recognize creative subjects such as music, dance, and arts within the curriculum. And I feel like that just pervades society. So different ways that we're accepted and approached. I feel one way that could work really well for the tourism industry is engage artists as more of a collaborator rather than a service provider. So sometimes we'll be hired for something and they're like, we just want you to do this. And like in our heads, we're like, oh man, it would be so much better if we could do this. You know what I mean? But they don't want to listen to it. They have in their mind what would be well, rather than approaching the artist and be like, hey, this is what we're trying to achieve with this event. What are your thoughts? You know what I mean? And then you're going to get the best out of the artist, because they're going to be like, okay, we could do, you know, A, B, C, and, you know, it'd be a more collaborative experience. You know, it's not like you're hiring a speaker or a light and you just turn it on. You know what I mean? Like, this artist has a wealth of a lifetime of like dancing or painting or playing. Like, I think that the tourism industry would provide better experiences for guests if they engage the artist as more back and forth sort of like contributor. With my hat of the Fiji Islands Dance Association. So the Fiji Islands Dance Association was just formed during COVID with the help of the International Labour Organization. And it's to help the dance community have a collective voice. There's about over 400 dancers represented by the Fiji Islands Dance Association. And currently there's 18 dance companies registered in the association, which is not nearly even half of the dance companies that are operating in Fiji. So some of the biggest issue when we do consultations and go around and talk to like a lot of the small dance companies, like within Nandi, there's a lot of family run small groups there. So like they're run by families and they usually do sort of, you know, Polynesian or fire dancing forms, and they're sort of like, yeah, anyway. So the problem is that they find that they get undercut by each other. Yeah? Like, so like one, and the hotel will play off like, oh, these gangs said that they'll do it for 300. No, these gangs said they're going to do it for 200. And that's how it goes. So they end up performing for like almost no money, but they need the money to be able to continue to perform and also survive. So then you have these small family groups that are performing for like $200, but they have to hire a van and they have to make their costumes and they have to pay the dancers, and it's just not enough. And, you know, I think that like a lot of people assume that people just get up and dance, but it takes like one full week of work to prepare like 5 minutes of stage time, you know? So so a lot of them, when we asked them, what is your biggest issues that the Fiji Islands Dance Association might be able to assist with? A lot of them said like, can we please have a minimum industry rate? You know, it doesn't have to be astronomically high, but at least something that we know that everyone else agrees on, that, you know, is fair for both the tourism stakeholder and also the performing artist that is providing the service. So that was one of the biggest things that the dancers in the Dance Association brought up with us. And also a lot of the dancers that are operating in the tourism industry are informal family groups, like I mentioned. And I think that helping them also like make sure that they're compliant in terms of like paying the dancers FNPF, like make sure that, you know, the company is registered, doing their tax returns and all that kind of stuff, which can be overwhelming. But then that's what FIDA is for, to help assist with all of those kinds of regulatory things. Because the tourism industry will hire you if you can issue a proper invoice and make sure that, you know, the service is provided, and then give them a receipt. All of that kind of stuff will help smaller informal groups find more work within the tourism industry. Yeah, those are just some of the things that I wanted to highlight. And yeah, happy to talanoa and answer any questions. Naka.
Thank you, Ms. Soro, for sharing on the performing arts industry and on bridging the gap between the tourism industry and the arts industry through collaboration. I think we need to engage more in order to satisfy our guests and in contributing towards the development of the cultural tourism. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I guess we have Mr. Yusuf back online to contribute on the MSME sector. Yusuf?
Vinaka Jatisna, my apologies for the glitch. As I've already mentioned, with regards to MSME Fiji, we have been working very well with the tourism team with regards to developing the ecotourism space, especially in Fiji. Now, if you look at tourism in general, when we started off, I think our strategies was a bit focusing on the high end and the middle tourism. And if you look at it, it's contributed almost about 40% GDP. Now, after COVID, what has happened is it's make us realize that there's a lot of potential that we'll need to work with the resource owners in developing the ecotourism. So this is where MSME comes in, together with the HRDP grant that we have. There is a grant that we have, it's on a 1/3, 2/3 contributions, right up to 100,000 that the customer they can apply for. Now, our focus is looking at villages and then forming them into a cooperative, and then looking at the competitive advantage in how best they can develop ecotourism in the area. We started with 4 projects initially. One of them is the Namosi Eco Retreat up in the highlands of Namosi. Then we move on to Moma Waterfall that is in Tavioni. It is another cooperative. A lesson learned in the community is there's 2, if you look at these 2 operations, Namosi is operated by an individual. Now, in the community, when we look at Moma, it is the ecotourism is operated by a cooperative. One of the lessons learned is getting the community to agree in terms of land and also to work together. It's quite a task. At first, when we started off with HRDP, we used the Wakabanua arrangement. In other words, when we want to go into a community to develop the ecotourism, we funded it. The Matangali consented, and they come and start. Now, the project, what happens is that there is no legal entity over there. So a lot of issue arises in terms of the disagreement amongst the village members, in terms of the cooperative, in terms of running ecotourism out there. So all in all, our focus now is looking at how best we can develop ecotourism in partnership with the Ministry of Tourism out in Fiji. We have started off with Namosi. We are looking at to develop further into Namosi if Waivaka is coming in, and also looking at Vanuatu. There's a potential to develop ecotourism out there in the Vanuatu, working with the community. And as I've already mentioned, our approach is always a bottom-up approach, where we partner with other stakeholders like Itoke Affairs. There's a Itoke Trust. Just to give an example over here, our grant, the HRDP grant that I'm talking about, is 100,000, but it's a 1/3, 2/3 contribution. In partnering with the Itoke Trust, we normally advise the landowners to go and, especially the indigenous resource owners, to apply through the Itoke Trust that they can fund their 1/3 contribution. Currently, there are some of in this financial year, there are a couple of ecotourism businesses. We have undergo this partnership together with the Itoke Trust in terms of their 1/3 and 2/3 contribution. All in all, I think this is where the government is looking at, because it ties in all with the MSMEs. And if you look at the contributions of MSMEs, there's about 60% in terms of business all over Fiji, and their contribution in terms of GDP is about 18%. That is before COVID. I'm pretty sure if we do during COVID time, there's a lot of small business that mushroom including ecotourism businesses that mushroom. And if you look at it, most probably it's going to go up to about 20%. So this is where the government is looking at if we can develop ecotourism in areas, especially for the resource owners, looking at the competitive advantage, looking at in terms of the resources that we have, whether it's a historical site or whether it's from a farm to table concept, looking at agritourism, looking at sports tourism, something that we've been doing. I think if you are familiar with Mbai, Ceremony Mbai has been doing agri cooperatives. So what we are looking at is to further develop that into sports tourism. So this is where the government is looking at because of the impact it is going to create into the society, especially to the resource owners. And we want to take tourism right throughout Fiji. And as I've already mentioned, 40% of GDP that we've already got the traffic coming in. If we're able to divert only about 10% or 5% into the local ecotourism space, that'll be huge. We're looking at Bonolevu, we are looking at the whole of even Lau Group, Kandavu, Tailevu side. If you are aware, Tailevu, we have Silana over there. That's also a partnership with Grant. That is a youth group that they've done the ecotourism lodge of the Silana, and down the road is Natalera. So this is where the government is looking at into developing ecotourism, agritourism, sports tourism, and even yachting tourism out there into the rural areas, because the impact is huge in terms of looking at the ecotourism space. So that is in a nutshell with us. And those of you listening out there, the grant is still open. I'm not so sure if I have to be saying about this grant over here, but it's open. Those of you interested, please do let us know. There's 100,000 to develop your business, not only in the ecotourism space, but all other MSME in general. And just to give you a definitions of MSMEs, for micro, that is 1 to 0 to 50,000, 50,000 to 300. That's medium and small is those enterprise right up to 1.2 million. So if your annual turnover is 1.2 million below, you qualify for such grant. So please, the fund is still here. It's all in our website. You can access that, and in terms of developing ecotourism, this is something that the government is aggressively looking at, to taking ecotourism out there into the villages. There's also a concept. I was discussing the same thing with cooperative backpackers in Sawa just a couple of weeks ago. We want to get away from the context that when we refer to backpackers, there's our low-end tourism. So what we are trying to promote is this ecotourism is the experience. There's a niche market that it can be tapped, and not only the backpackers, but it's an experience that the tourists that they'll come and experience our way of life, our tradition, and there's a lot of people ready to pay money just to come and pull out the mbele or cassava, or go fishing, or learn how to make a fire or something like that, the traditional way. So we want to create this market that, yes, this is an area where we can partnership with the community in developing or in creating employment, or in terms of poverty alleviations in rural areas. And HRDP, under the MSME grant, this is the aim of the program. How do we elevate poverty in rural areas and in terms of employment creations? And if you look at it, a lot of resource owners out there, they can go into this concept where they can link agri-farming into ecotourism, from a farm to table concept thing. Yeah. So yes, that is basically what we've been trying to do now at the ministry level. And I think the the biggest obstacles in driving this is getting the community to creating that community awareness. As I've already mentioned about those two projects, coming into a community, into a cooperative is always hard. If you look at Namosi is an individual. So there's two examples that we are carrying out, especially in the villages. We are advising there's two approaches. One is even though it's a community-based ecotourism, but the individual lease the land from the Matangali, and I think it's working beautifully with them up there in the Namosi because of the impact it's created. And look at Bomba, it is the community. So we are taking these two examples out there, giving them these two options because it's either somebody in the village who wants to develop ecotourism, they can work with us. And the first advice is for them to get a tourism list from TLTP. Just yesterday, we're having a discussion, a meeting with TLTP with regards to this. So yes, that is our biggest constraint is in terms of working together as a group in rural areas.
Thank you, Mr. Yusufo. I guess the MSME team and the ministry has worked on quite a few projects, community-based tourism projects previously, and we are looking forward to more projects. As we have said, there's funding available that the MSME can tap into to look into projects such as ecotourism, agritourism, cultural tourism, and so forth. Thank you so much for sharing on that. Colleagues, our next speaker is Singapore Studios Creative and Managing Director and VT Association of Visual Arts Co-Chair, Ms. Maria Rova. She is an award-winning visual artist and arts community activist based in Nandi. Over the years, her family-run art enterprise, Singapore Studios, has proven time and again that when the tourism industry invests in Fijian-made art, spin-offs are positive and long-lasting for all involved. She is also a founding member of VAVA, the Association of Visual Artists, set up by Artists for Artists to support and promote the development of Fiji's art sector. Ma'am, thank you for joining us. You have the floor now.
Vinaka and Dolavina to everyone who's on this session. Really appreciate being invited to come in as one of the voices from Fiji's burgeoning creative industry. We are grateful to have the opportunity to raise our issues, especially the bread and butter issues that, hang on a second. Sorry, just having an issue with my screen sharing here. Could you please jump to the next speaker? There's something happened to my screen, sorry. Okay, actually, if that's okay, if maybe don't share the slide and then I can still see my notes here. Technical issues. Am I okay to carry on speaking?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so sorry. All right, so yes, there is magic waiting to happen through better integration of the tourism industry and the creative industries. And I'm here to just raise a few points from our on-the-ground experience. I started working as a full-time artist, visual artist 25 years ago. Through what I thought was going to be a short-term fling, experimenting with painting onto Masi Vula Vula or our white bark cloth. At the time, the visual art scene in Fiji seemed to be largely an elite and expat thing. Our art exhibitions were filled with work by wives of diplomats and other hobby artists. And I think many of our young emerging artists felt out of place and assumed they were not welcome. Around that time, we started selling art from the very first display home out on Denarau Island. And well do I remember an Australian couple swerving by to park next to us one Saturday morning as we were setting up our art sale sign. And they were just like so excited to meet local artists and realize that, yes, there is a contemporary art scene in Fiji. You see, they'd been asking at the resort where they were staying where they could go to see local art. And the staff had promptly told them, oh, Fiji doesn't have any artists. Fast forward 20 years, and there have definitely been some positive changes. Our contemporary art scene is blossoming, not without a heap of teething problems, but there is a lineup of local artists doing cutting-edge international quality work. And an innovative visual arts program over at the Oceania Center in USP has a lot to answer for that. They've been quite influential in encouraging a Fiji arts movement that has branched into lots of different directions. Definitely very interesting to watch and to be part of. Our local visual artists recently banded together to set up VAVA, the Visual Association of VT Association of Visual Artists, as a support and advocacy group. And our informal online forum has over 200 practicing artists as members. When exhibitions are staged, they're filled with brilliant local art. That's despite the fact that there is little formal support for our children and our young people gifted in this area, with very few of our schools running fun and engaging arts development programs. On the bright side, the advent of social media and smartphone cameras has meant that many of Fiji's artists have a new and low-cost way to connect with their buyers, even if there are no art galleries showcasing their work. Why is it then that so few of our creatives are actually able to make a consistent living from their talents? Why are numerous hotels and resorts still bypassing local talent when it comes to wall art and installations for their lobbies and their gardens? And why are our gift shops crammed with imported arts and crafts now in 2023, when there is a growing number of tourists who want to spend their dollars on quality, authentic Fijian product, and also experiences that are truly representative of our local culture and of their experience, their memories of our island life? Where is our National Art Gallery? Even the Solomon Islands has one. We have an intriguing national collection of fine art gathering dust and mildew in the cupboards at the Fiji Art Council. And we have plenty of fresh cutting-edge talent to showcase and celebrate. Right there is the makings of a major tourist attraction just waiting to happen. For that matter, where is all the flagship public art that our cities and towns should be boasting? Why is there yet another massive billboard structure going up in the middle of the Votulevu roundabout, when that would be the most amazing place for a stunning large-scale art installation, beautifying this gateway into Fiji as a unique wow factor? Where are the urban street art districts? Fiji has yet to join this worldwide movement using mural art to turn derelict neighborhoods into tourist meccas, often as a partnership between creative city councils and private businesses. If you Google Fiji art galleries, the first 3 results that you get are currently not operational. The pickings on TripAdvisor are equally sparse. Where are our art trails? And just an example of a low-cost DIY solution and a tourism concept that's very popular with travelers overseas. I understand from browsing through the 2019 International Visitors Survey that tourists spent in that year 11.9 million on shopping in Fiji, and 2.3 of which was shopping for handicrafts and arts. Yet anecdotal evidence points to considerable numbers of tourists leaving our shores without having spent the funds they had actually set aside for gift shopping. simply because they haven't found the authentic Fijian-made product that sparks joy and meaning for them, and that they would consider value for money. Obviously, there is a big disconnect going on here. Tourism Fiji has just advised us yet again that the travel industry trends show an increasing interest in holidays that offer community connection, access to authentic cultural product and experiences. So on the one hand, we've got plane loads of tourists arriving every day with dollars to spend on this. And on the other hand, we have a wealth of local creative talent that is not being developed, not being put to use, with families that are struggling to put food on the tables, amazing artists that are scrubbing dishes or packing boxes in supermarkets instead of plying their trade. There are problems on both sides of this divide from our perspective, and changes that could happen to bridge this chasm and to make sure that the benefits are spread more equitably. The world of commercial contracts, deadlines, quality control, service delivery is confounding to most emerging artists and also many of our accomplished artists. And add to that just the general climate of trying to run a small business in Fiji with all the red tape and the infrastructure hassles. The fact that doing business in the tourism industry almost always involves some kind of cross-cultural communication, very often for our artists in a language that is not their mother tongue, and where the setting is very different from the easygoing, family-orientated communities that we come from. So obviously there's work to do there with more support and training and mentoring needed for those that are motivated to learn and are committed to the grind that comes with success. On the other hand, there is still a prevailing attitude in parts of the tourism industry that sourcing overseas means better quality and or cheaper prices. Interior design decisions are often being made by overseas consultants who have no, or at best, very superficial understanding of Fijian culture and context. So they prioritize the imported decor that they're familiar with. As one GM from a large hotel near here said to me last year, the tourists won't know the difference anyway. I beg to differ. At our family-run art studio, Singapore Studios, we have had the joy of working with numerous industry players over the years. We shall be forever grateful to the tour operators, the hotels, and the resorts, big and small, that have put their faith in us time and time again, pushing our creative team right out of its comfort zone to create 300 paintings for their guest rooms, or rustle up 60 last-minute welcome gifts for a conference group, or facilitate a mural painting with visiting dignitaries in a local school. Invariably, all these investments and collaborations resulted in a three-way win-win-win. Our tourists are appreciative, and they delight in our unique Fiji-inspired art-making experiences. The second win, we receive as an art studio, a small family-run art business, revenue that keeps our studio open and our artists in steady, fair pay jobs. And third, the tour company or the resort has a marketing edge, a product that will not be found anywhere else in the world. And another tick to the sustainability and community engagement column. That is a genuine one. There are more stories to tell and ideas to throw around, but in closing, I just want to say that it would be awesome to see many more industry players engaging with our local creatives and making use of that 300% income tax rebate that's currently on offer for doing so. Deciding to go the extra mile or two to engage local creatives in preserving their culture and their cultural knowledge and artistic practices with the world as it comes to our doorstep. This is, friends, after all, one way that we can all work to make sure that those tourist dollars trickle down to community level more effectively, and that we can keep the happiness flowing both ways, naturally. Inaka.
Thank you, Ms. Norva, for sharing on the creative arts industry and the issues associated with it and how we can explore creative tourism in greater tourist spending. Thank you so much. Colleagues, our next speaker is Veikau Lodge Director, Ms. Elanwa Nimandere. She is from the Highlands of Naitasiri, and she is the Vinaka Fiji Yasawa Trust Foundation Manager, the charity arm of South Sea Cruises. Her work revolves around assisting the indigenous community in improving living standards and creating income-generating projects for villages, and also assist those who want to start their ecotourism businesses. She started from scratch, visiting each and every village on Yasawa, right from southern to the northern tip of the island, just to convince chiefs on the importance of working together in partnership with tourism stakeholders. Colleagues, she will be presenting on community and rural development, and I would like to invite her to the floor. Thank you, Ms. Alanoa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Reddy, and Bolvinaka to everyone that are present this morning. I will talk about my experiences. 20 years of experience for South Sea Cruises, and most of it is with the communities. The first part would be the direct participation in tourism from the community, and that's through Awesome Adventures Fiji. And the second part is the Vinaka Fiji Yasawa Foundation, which is the indirect participation of our communities in tourism. Before the transport company started in the Yasawas, the South Sea Cruises need to have people to get on, to be able to have a boat to travel to the Yasawas. So the private sector, which is South Sea Cruises, came up with trying to find someone to help them to find places to be able to build some small ecotourism businesses in Yasawa. So that's when I was employed in the company, and the great thing about it is they will provide transport, and they will also provide marketing these places, these resorts. So I packed my bag. I thought it's a fun ride, but it's the sea you're traveling in, getting into a spot where people are interested, the indigenous are interested to have a van calling backpacking, just one bure, just the state of it. I think you would not want to stay in it, but the interest is there. Got in, talked to the resource owner. They love to be assisted because they do not also have the skill. South Sea Cruises is bringing in someone that would be to help them start their businesses. So we started to be 4 at the time. Water was already placed, a camping area for the cruise, two cruise company, and that's mainly Captain Cook. Spoke to owners there, and also with some others that are interested. While going in, looking at the areas, looking at how to build the resort, it's more work on my part to come back to the mainland and go to government agencies, make sure that the building plans are what the approval agencies approve of, and so forth. So it's too much of a work. So I came back. We started with 4 resorts at that time. Lovely set up, a traditional resort, thatch roof, and so forth. Taught them on preparing food. This is Fijian food done in a way that you know, could be given to the guests. And I said, oh, okay, this is hard work. So I have then requested, but at the time, I'm thankful for the ecotourism unit, that is during Garas's government time. And it has helped me very, so much. And I would like to thank Mr. Kwame Mbole and Ms. Rusieli Moore for helping us start up the opening of tourism in Nyansawa. I keep going to their offices, and it opened up my mind and make me be introduced to Commissioner Western at that time, which is Mr. Zawaki, and then other government agencies that are involved in tourism. And then I requested if you could have a task force committee to be able to discuss about the issues of building resorts in the Azores. And I'm so thankful that Mr. Zawaki just jumped to the invitation and said, yes, let's start. And the Ministry of Tourism director at that time was all for it, and everyone else. So we always have our monthly meeting, and we have TLTB present. We have the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Environment. We have all those related to a tourism product available. So we all sat down in a room and discuss about issues of the Azores, discuss about how we could, how could they mend the policy to be able to have our indigenous people start their businesses. So that's how Azores started. And I always say, no man is an island. You cannot work alone, so the private sector cannot work alone. So now the only way forward for any tourism or anything to do with any business in the country, from my experience, is through private-public partnership. And the communities is involved as well. So those who are interested, who are family-owned, they are part of this committee as well. They come in and listen in and to know about the way forward. It's hard to also get the license at that time, the hotel license, because the smaller resorts pay the same hotel fee as the large resorts. So from this task force committee, we are now able to pay the hotel license from the numbers of beds that you have in your resort. So that is, in my experience, just alone, the only way forward to work together, and it's through public-private partnership. Have all the agencies sit down together in the same room, rather than sending an email there and you wait, sending an email there and you wait for quite some time, and sending another email anywhere. But the great thing here is you have a backup from the private sector to market the product and also to provide transport. That's where the Awesome Adventures Fiji came in. And then the first year we had a 40-seater boat, first year. And the second year we had a 150-seater boat. That's the first year Sour Flyer. And then come the second year Sour Flyer, which is now running, which is a 240-seater boat. The challenges we have at the time was discussed at the task force. And because Commissioner Weston is the chair, everybody have got a task to do. And the task, and they come back to assist with the request that comes from the community level. So that's how the Awesome Adventures Fiji started, with these indigenous resorts in the Azores. We started off with 19 resorts, all indigenous owned, and also individual, and we ended up with 11. The only problem I know that the Azores resorts faced at the moment is, it's so important, the upskilling of the owners and the upskilling, having those that are trained managers to sit at this indigenous resort to run the resort. And secondly, who would know that COVID will strike, will be a global pandemic? Who would have thought that? Because they were not ready. The small boys were not ready for that. So that's I think it's a problem now for our resorts in Azores, for our indigenous partners in Azores. And we then we opened up these hours, so everyone is going to your house. We have also identified activity areas like the Sawailau Cave. What Asatsi Cruises have helped in is the part which the resort, which the landowners cannot do. So they helped in with the safety. So they make sure that the cave is safe for all the guests and is also accident free. So those are the things that are done by the private sector. Other thing is mentoring. So we mentored. I had a team hours to go and check the kitchen, check the planning, that track. Those are the things that continues from the private sector. And that's how also we happen to make sure that everyone, the folks from tourism, expatriates, owner resorts, are also speaking the same level as the indigenous resorts. We must remember you're working with those that are not skilled. That's why we need mentoring. And then here comes their children that went out for training. Now they're running the resorts. So hopefully it continued that way, and including the activity areas that has been established in Yasao. So I then moved to
so
to
sorry,
run
Ms.
and-
Alanwa. Hello. Sorry to cut you off. I guess we are running out of time.
so
would you
I
like
then
to-
moved to the communities, and that's where the indirect participation in tourism comes from. And we worked with the NGOs as well in this area, including all government agencies as well, to set up the income generating projects. So they provide eggs for the resort. So there's something we call the food banks, where women were taught by the Ministry of Agriculture and also our staff to grow vegetables and send it to the resort. Unfortunately, COVID came in, and the continuity has come to an end, and hopefully that will continue. And other income generating projects, we work with the other agency in government for funding. And also we have a volunteerism organization that is part of Vinaka Fiji, that they come in and also help bring in their skills, and also they fund these projects that we have in the villages in Yansao. Sorry, Ms. Reddy, am I out of time?
Yes.
Okay.
So sorry
So
to cut you off.
Thank you. So maybe I wanted to talk about Naitasiri because that's where the hurdle is, my hurdle is. So maybe I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Alanwa. I guess we have, from our stats, we have more than 84,000 tourists visiting the Yasavas. So a very big Vinaka Bakalevu to you, ma'am, for all the hard work that has been put in to assist and encourage the communities to start their tourism business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, we also have with us Mr. Luke Fried from Agri-Tourism Association to share his experience as an agri-tourism operator. Mr. Luke?
Morning, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Marita asked me to talk briefly about how we set up a agri-tourism venture here just out of Singatoka based around coffee. So to start with, I'll just give you a very brief history of Bulla Coffee. We started in 2011, and the goal was to give really the people in the highlands who had wild coffee growing in the bush, falling on the ground, a sustainable income, because this coffee was worth a lot of money and it was just rotting on the ground every year. So we started in 2011 with one family, and we harvested roughly about 20 or 30 kgs of coffee. And then each year we've just grown progressively over and over. And we now buy coffee off about 5,500 people, and we do about 60 tons a year. We're hoping to get 100 tons this year. So we had a factory set up in Singatoka town, and we processed the whole we manage the whole process of the coffee from the cherry on the tree all the way through to a bag of coffee in the shop ready to be ground up and drunk. We used to get a lot of people calling into us. We were selling mostly into the tourism market with Tapus, Jacks, Prouds, supermarkets. And we were selling a lot through just our website as well to Australia and New Zealand, and we would export some to Japan and the UK as well each year. So we would get people rocking up at our old place who have bought our coffee or who had seen it in the shops and wanted to know all about it, wanted to hear the stories of working up in the Highlands, wanted to see the process of how it worked. And our old factory was really just a factory. It wasn't safe for people to be walking around, and it wasn't really set up at all for tourists to be showing up. There was lots of safety issues as well as machines everywhere, and it just wasn't appropriate to have people there. So we were looking at buying some land and everything, and then we stumbled across this property here. And I remember the first time I think I came to look at it, Elise was with me, and we were umming and ahhing about it. It was quite a rundown property. It had been essentially abandoned for about 2 years, and I really didn't know whether it was worth the work in it. I mean, worth putting all the work into it and getting it up and established. And I remember Elise looking at me and going, "This has so much potential. You have to do it. You have to do it." And I remember saying, "Well, it's easy for you. You can say that, but then you're going to walk away and go back to Suva, and I'm the one that's going to have to start cutting grass and fixing windows and painting buildings and getting everything certified and sorted." We ended up buying that property, and then we got a huge amount of help from the Party 2 project, who helped us go through all the regulatory requirements, really, of having tourists here, of getting public liability insurance, getting people first aid trained, getting the building up to scratch. We had to renovate all the toilets, and we really had to renovate the whole place. New glass, a lot of doors were locked, banged in and everything from it being abandoned here. And then the next thing that we had to work through was how to explain our process and some of the stories that we had, how to put that into a story and a tour that would be interesting for tourists. And I think the big mindset change for us was when we realized that people generally are interested. Like for us, it was work, drying the beans out, selecting the beans, hulling them, testing them for their moisture content, grading them to size, all that kind of thing is just work. But for somebody who isn't involved really in the coffee industry and just rocks up at a cafe and orders a coffee, for them, that is a really fascinating experience. And I think often in Fiji, we take that kind of thing for granted. People say, "Oh, I want to do a farm tour." And they go, "Oh, but, I've just got cassava, or I'm just growing this," and people wouldn't be interested in that kind of thing. Because it's an everyday mundane thing for us, we count it as work. But for tourists coming in who don't know how gardens grow in Fiji, they don't know that cassava is in the ground. Some think it might be a fruit on the tree. It's actually an interesting process. And I think that was the big change for us when we figured that we clicked really, that people do find what's going on interesting. So we opened in April, I think, last year. And with the Party project with Alicia and Marita, they also got us linked in with Rosie's Tours and a few other tourist destination, tourist, what do you call them? Booking agents, or whatever you call them. And Tourism Fiji has also been really helpful with us, getting people along here to see what's happening, travel agents that are coming into the country to come along, travel writers coming along to see what's happening. So that's been a really valuable link for us as well. And then we're just starting in our little shop space to link up with other small businesses really, or handicraft people that are selling things but may not have it, or make things but may not have an outlet for them. So because we're getting tourists in here, they're often interested in really unique, genuine handmade things. I think too often they rock up in a tourist shop and they see the t-shirts that are made in China, or the key tags that have a plastic and have written "I love Fiji" on it, but then you can see that they're also made in China, and they're looking for that genuine experience. And we found the same thing, that people want a genuine experience when they drink their coffee in the morning, to find out where the coffee comes from, and they're interested to see that it actually grows here and that it's actually helping get people sustainable incomes. The same thing applies when they come into the shop and they see things that are genuinely handmade, whether it's hand poured candles from Bliss, or whether it's the people that are making salt that spend hours making their salt into a really unique product. And so we've started to be able to stock some of these things that then we can then that tourists can then come in and see as well, and it gives them an opportunity to buy something that is genuinely Fijian, rather than a lot of the plastic gimmicky type things that they will sometimes go away with. So that's really the outline, the outlook of what we've done and what we've started. We want to extend further. We're quite a link now between some of the villages that we work with, where we buy all their coffee. You get a lot of like a lot of the ladies up there are crazy talented with some of the pottery they do, the weaving they do, and all that kind of thing. And I think the next step logically would be to give tourists a chance to experience that, or to experience what life is like in a Fijian village. So we're working around that side of things for the tourism thing. We also want to expand in where we are now. It's a nice little property. We would like to expand by getting other artisans or artists or whatever down here, so that it becomes a sort of a hub on the Coral Coast for things that are for a genuine Fijian experience, whether they are going to see people in the villages, or whether they're coming to experience or to buy genuine products. So that's where we're heading now. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. If there's any questions that anyone wants to ask, then feel free.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your experience and views on the subject. I believe we have come to an end for part one of our session. So thank you very much to all the panelists for sharing your views and experience. I will now ask my co-facilitator, Ms. Alice Lutu from IFC, to take us through the Q&A session.
Pinaka Jyoti. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we've heard some really great stories from our, our panel, especially hearing of the experiences in the creative arts industry, the agritourism and the ecotourism space, as well as our community-based partners. And I think, obviously there's a lot of work that you've all been doing in your space, and 10 minutes is not enough to be able to share everything. And I think the crux of our conversation today is, highlighting those constraints and opportunities. What are the actions that need to be taken for the future development in those spaces? So we'll go straight into the questions. I see there's a lot of activity in the chat box. We have probably about just under 30 minutes for Q&A. So we'll try and get through everyone's questions. And please feel free to put in your comments in the chat box. These comments will really help, especially for the team here at the ministry in collating, especially with the feedback that will be needed to formulate the National Sustainable Tourism Framework. So there was a question from Mark McElrath, and he's from Garden of the Sleeping Giants Orchid Farm, and his question was on how do small flower farmers, floriculture farmers, link up with tertiary institutes, FNU and USP out in the West to train and employ students in floriculture. So probably I'll give the floor to our panelists, if they've been, what have been your experiences, if you've had experiences working with tertiary institutes, especially training in floriculture. And also probably, we've got Save here as well. Is that a space that you've explored or had experiences with the stakeholders or businesses that you've worked with? That was a question that was raised from Mark.
They're asking for training in
So
experience working with FNU and USP to have students to come and be trained on the farm.
so have
they can contact FNU straight away directly.
yes, I guess it'd be good to see whether anyone has had any experiences with working with FNU or USP to engage students in that in very high specialized area of foreign culture.
We've done a couple of work with them in terms of training with FNU, but not in floriculture and all those things. Normally ours is on that they provide training for screen printing, for hair braiding, hair dyeing. A couple of our MSMEs in Linkages, in partnership with the Tokyo Affairs together with FNU. We provide business advice together with the cooperative umbrella and the grants and the Tokyo Trust, and FNU provides the training. That is through the training team, the team in FNU. They provide the training was basically for women in terms of not that
Not even specific.
what she's talking about, but I think if they can explore that, they can also have that because what the training they offered was on screen printing and sewing, cutting of hairs and all those kind of things. And right now we provide funding. If you go to the cooperative in Tasiri, in my Korokoro, they've got a nice building over there, and they have a cooperative store. In front, there's a room over there for sewing. There's a screen printing room outside, and there's a fully aircon hair salon for ladies over there. It's currently it was opened 2 months or 3 months ago. So if you want to have your haircut, you can go right up to that. I'm just relating it something they can do if they can inquire with the FNU with regards to flower arrangement. And we will also inquire with them with our context over there. Then we can come back to the next.
We do have our internship programs for Bachelor for Agriculture. We did every year. They come from the 3 years, three-year students. We can spend 6 months with us. So they sign their forms that they have done the intern.
That's with
FNU.
okay.
And they go for graduation. Without them, they cannot graduate.
Okay.
But in terms for him, we actually have I sit in the ISD, the Industrial Study Committee of the Fiji High Commission, Education Commission. So what we do there is actually looking at tracing up, mapping the requirements of industry to the students. Yeah? And that's where he can come in and ask the FNU, the higher education units, to be that florism, whatever it's called, to be part of that ISD. And they can use him to become, and then they can see how best they can work.
Okay.
Once that is passed, then they pass it to all of the universities and to.
Okay.
I think that floriculture is also, it's not termed on its own. If you look at the institution, I think it's combined together with the agricultural thing. Yes. So that is another thing because I remember working with Bernie in Nandi, that orchid.
Mrs. Vanessa.
Mrs. Vanessa.
Yes, we funded part of their training. Yes, and I think part of the issue with them is that this industry needs to stand on its own. It is, I think it's lumped together with agriculture or something. So that's why it's hidden over there. So all the policies of the government comes in, it reflects only agriculture in general, but not specifically on this floriculture. I think this I remember discussing this with this one as out there. And that policy, that is reflected. I think it'll come throughout the training to the TVET sections and all those kind of things.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think, Mark, what we can do is We'll be sharing the emails for the panelists after the webinar. So, feel free to get in touch with Sabe and ESF. We're already doing some work in that space. I think there's another question that is on public liability. I think Honorina from Pacific Island Trade Invest in Sydney. Her question was, will premium for liability insurance be competitive for small operators? Would any of the operators like to share or comment on that? Sachiko and Maria? And Eleanor as well? So the question was from Honorina from Hawaii, and hers was on, will premium for liability insurance be competitive for small operators?
So for us, that is an issue that we are currently working on. We need to get cover in order to be able to be more active, offering creative experiences to the tourism industry. And we've actually we're part of a dialogue with the Fiji Hotel and Tourism Association yesterday, where they were informing us that it is something that they're working on. And so there's definitely people addressing the gap in the market for an affordable public liability cover that can be accessed by MSMEs in Fiji.
Thank you. Sachiko would like to add on to that?
Yes, public liability insurance is very expensive, and it's I know it's just, I don't know, it's so expensive, but and it's very prohibitive. Like, you have these young, arts groups that want to come and do this thing, and then all of a sudden, like, there's this big full stop there, like, oh wait, by the way, you need like, this many $1,000s for public liability. I don't know what the answer to this is. We struggled with this, but we had to like bite the bullet and pay for it in order to be able to run the shows that we have at the VOHub. So I think that there could be two solutions possibly, like maybe like associations getting together and collectively buying public liability for maybe a little range of experiences that they all agree that are safe enough to have people, because you can't just have tourists going anywhere. Maybe a second option. I know it's so hard getting loans from FDB because I've been rejected like 100 million times. But maybe, I don't know, if there could be like a loan facility amount where they could borrow that insurance amount and then pay it back over time. Because once you start the cash flow rolling, then and you get that experience running, then you might be able to afford the insurance premium when you have to renew it for the next year of operations. Those are two possible solutions.
All right. Not Sachiko.
I think that's a very good point, with regards to that. Because I know when most of those ecotourism-based hotels or entrepreneurs is something they embrace them. When they don't have the cover, the risk in bringing in the tourists, and so most of the sales is affected because of this. And the fact that it's very expensive for them. So I think at that point we will load it down and see how best we can.
Probably in terms of what MSME,
yes,
especially this is an ongoing issue that's been raised by MSMEs, and
can be a policy matter or something.
Yes.
So,
okay. Team. There was questions raised on the public infrastructure and upgrades, and I think that came from Mark as well as Sachiko, especially if you're trying to encourage ecotourism and agriculture, every tourism businesses, whether it's in communities or in rural areas or private owned businesses, how can government help in that area? Is there assistance in government or through the ministry? And maybe Jyoti Tradishna too is online and probably could share as well from the Ministry of Tourism as well.
Jyoti, I think as I've already mentioned, it's a very good point because we've met up with a couple of, especially the ecotourism side. They've raised this point with regards to the liability, the insurance, it's rather expensive. So this is something that we'll need to look at how best, especially from the MSME point of view, together with tourism, how best we can assist in terms of this. This is something like the insurance for agriculture, those in the agricultural space. If we can have something like that, then it will really assist those small business or ecotourism based out there in the community.
Thank you, sir. I have also put in my email on the chat, and we have we would like to receive proposals on that, so that we can organize meetings and look into this area. Same with public liability. Just last week we received a proposal. So if you can send us the proposals with regards to whatever ideas in terms of infrastructure or public liability, I guess we can look into it.
If I could just encourage the associations that are on the call, so the Fiji Islands Dance Association, the Visual Artists Association, and I think there's some reps from Dorvata as well. I think, we're in a lot of conversations where MSMEs raise these issues, but then don't follow up with a formal written submission explaining the problem and how many members that they have that they're representing that have the same issue. So perhaps I could encourage the associations that are on the call to get together and write collectively to the ministry. It doesn't have to be long, can be really short, but just outlining from your perspective how many members you feel are facing these challenges, because that will also give the people that are trying to solve the problem an idea of the size of the market. Because at the end of the day, if an insurer is going to provide a solution, whether it's through kind of a public subsidized model or whether it's a commercial product, they're going to want to know how many people is this likely to be applicable for, i.e. what's the size of the market that they could potentially be offering this solution to. So that would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that was on public infrastructure and upgrades. It'd be interesting to see whether there's other government ministries that are also in these areas. I'm sure if you're talking about the different divisions, you can also go through the commissioner's office as well. Because I'm aware that they also have assistance with infrastructure, whether you're also yes. I think Sachiko had mentioned one, especially because it's in Horo, and it was to do with travel, and it's more to do with shipping and transport, but also just accessibility that Mark had mentioned about some battle with the road, improving the roads. Apart from MSME and the Ministry of Tourism, there might be other ministries as well, government agencies that are involved in those areas. How do we get in touch with the right people in their different divisions?
Unfortunately for MSME, we don't have funding for road infrastructure. Ours is purely on the business setup. But in terms of accessibility, I think with the government now, that lies with the Ministry of Infrastructure. Whichever divisions or province you set up, if it's something to do with that business, you can look at, it's best to liaise with the commissioner or the PAs or the DOs within your division, so that they can log your claims, and that will go to the Ministry of Infrastructure. I believe there's a new department over there, the PWD. They will look after rural roads. So this is where you can access those funding. But it has to come from, again, the letter has to come from your end. And if I was looking at somebody raised in Samberto, so if there's a group of businesses or small micro business within that area, I would suggest that you come together as a write a proposal write your request to channel it to DO or the commissioner, divisional commissioner Western. Okay, they will be the right people to be able to link your request to the Ministry of Infrastructure under the PWD sections, because I believe now with the new restructure, all the main highways will be taken care of by FRA, and the rural roads, this is where the PWD will come in. So from your end, that also goes with water, utilities, all those things. I think that the line that you can follow is through the commission. But I would suggest you come in as a group, and then when you do your proposal, you talk about what is the impact it's going to create it in your communities.
No,
Just a point, not for government, but holistically, the insurance is still within the perimeters of your operation. So any insurance, including the travel, is covered by either ACCP on the third-party policy if you motor vehicle, or the public liability in the boats if you get boats. So that is taken care by that. So the only interest we have is once you come to the premises and the activity you're going to do. This is what we're going to look at. If they're going to horse riding, okay, if they fall on the horse, there's a liability. So you focus on that. That's how we do ours. We don't look at outside. So anything that is within our operation and can cause injury, that is what we have to cater for the injury.
okay.
Policy on the other road thing, if yours is something related to farming, if you're doing agri-tourism in that way, if it's related to farming, another point of contact, you can look at the Ministry of Agriculture. They have a fund for farm access. Okay, so that is another. If you're doing agriculture product too, and then you have ecotourism, that's another door that you can. They also in charge. There's a funding for them under the farm access road. But I would suggest you come as a group. If there is a group of you leasing a land in Matangali land, it's about 10 or 20 of you. It will create more impact for them to push it through, because they will look at the impact. If we construct 100,000 road in this area over here, what is the impact that is going to create into the economy or into the community? If you have a couple of farmers out there, they are Ndalo farmers or Kangwa farmers, if they contribute to almost about 100,000 a month or a year, then it will justify why the road should come to your area. So I'm just giving you two windows over there. One is the Ministry of Agriculture, the other one is Infrastructure, and the Commissioner. It does not stop you from going directly to the Ministry of Infrastructure, but I would suggest if it's the province, you put one letter to the Commissioner's office and one to Ministry of Infrastructure, because they are the one who's going to follow it up on your behalf.
There's a question here for government reps. Could SMEs be covered under ACCF?
We haven't at the moment. So right now is just purely on the business creation side.
Okay.
But yes, that can be in also something going forward. But right now it's just
so not yet.
There's also a question from Martinitas Adventures about trust.
Okay, we've had a lot of, I see that Martelita from Dominica Adventures has had quite a bit of activity as well on the chat box. I think people just let her come in, and probably you had a question on trust and probably the best business models, especially for community-based or rural operators. Do you want to pose your question directly to the panel, Martelita from Dominica Adventures?
Thank you for this. That's one of the things that I find with the communities that I'm working with, and found, and they've shown their interest to be part of something quite similar to Domoika. The biggest issue here is, well, the Vanua said yes, the Matangali have shown their interest. The issue is having a legal document that binds members appointed in the Matangali to drive these business models that would be selected ideal for the Matangali. So I think the question was, or the difficulties that I found was the legal bit of it. I'm not a lawyer by profession. I have an accounting background, but in terms of what's best for the Vanua, a deed of trust would be an ideal a document to dictate the Matangali members who would become trustees. But this does not necessarily, it's not a business model. It is just a document that guides whoever is appointed under whatever model, business model whether it's a sole trader, not ideally the sole trader, a partnership or a company, apart from cooperative as an option. So it's a deed of trust that I was asking, and not necessarily a trust, but a deed of trust document is an area that I feel that this Matangali should have before a business model is to be selected. I hope my question is quite clear to the panel.
Nakamatilita, I think it's clear. I think we get what what you're trying to share here, and we have yourself for Savanaba and Eleanor already working that space, especially for communities and working with landowners. So I'll give them the time to just respond to that. It's just Martelita from Martelita Adventures.
Oh, okay. A lot of communities they are actually in trust now. They form their trust. Yes, you rightly mentioned over there, and this is where we've been putting out. We've been advising them or pushing them with regards to cooperatives. Most of the communities out there, they thought that cooperatives is just a Bakapunua arrangement, but it is a legal entity, just like the sole trader. What is a sole trader? Partnership, company. The fourth one is a cooperative. It is a legal entity where they can start their business and they can operate, and they can take that cooperative, they go to any commercial bank, they can loan. A lot of communities, they were thinking that it's just another Bakabanwa arrangement. And this is why you rightly mentioned over there, something that works, what is a business model that can work best in the community, especially the Itoke communities. This is why we are bringing in cooperatives, because the structure of cooperatives is just similar to our way of life, a communal way of life. We already structured into a Toka, a Matangali, a Yabusa, and a province linking into the government. And this is where it's all cooperative is just, if I put it into another term, linking it with our way of life into the community. This is just Sole Solebaki. So this is another reason why we are bringing that business model to the community, because the communal way of living, we are already 80% of them, because this is Sole Solebaki. Cooperative is just Sole Solebaki. We are already 80%. The other 20% is governance, and this is why we are pushing this model out there, because it's already a legal entity. So you rightly mentioned over there, if there is a framework that they can go into, or business framework, it will be cooperative. It does not stop them from going into the trust, like most of the Matangalis are doing now.
Thank you very much. Is the cooperative, so a cooperative profit oriented, or because I understand at the end of the year they equally share the profit among the members?
Yes, that is the main difference. If you look at those 4 types of businesses, we've got the sole trader, we've got the partnership, we've got the company. All those 3, they are profit driven. Cooperative, on the other hand, is a different model. Though it is a legal business, it's a different model. Theirs is it's a community-driven approach, whereby profit is not an issue, but helping one another, or community-based helping is paramount. So that is where they share the bonuses. That is where they share the the dividend. So the approach is a bit different with regards to the other three. And this is why I'm saying it directly fits into our Itoke culture, because this is exactly what our culture is about. It's about the social work, is about helping one another. And for our best model for the community to take will be the cooperative. But again, that is up to the communities. I was giving the example when in my earlier discussion was the two examples, Namosi and Boma cooperatives. Namosi is an individual. It is working fine right over there in Namosi, because that is individually driven, and also cooperative is working fine in Boma.
I'll just bring Eleanor into this as well. Eleanor, would you probably just share from your experience, especially with working with the communities, and especially in terms of trust, or Margarita raised a question on this.
The section is director is saying we don't trust, and we are going through cooperative. I think that's for our communal businesses, but it's we are doing
Sorry, Eleanor.
we have individual farmers, and it goes through the same way. It's the same as what directly is. We have a trust, and then we go through the public. So that's how we are operating.
Okay. Okay, Eleanor.
So the trust is really for your funding and who signs. The model is how you run your business.
Right.
But the trust is important. It will tell you who are the facilities, the trustees, and how the fund is going to be spent. That's all the job of the trust.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Sabi. Just probably one last question that was raised on the taxation requirements for cooperatives. Are they exempted, in terms of taxation requirements on profits made by a cooperative, VAT and income tax?
Yes, there is it's a 7, I think it's given on a 7-year term, but there's an exemption clause on that. Really? Yes.
For the first 7 years of operation.
So yeah, first 7 years or first 8 years.
Income tax.
Yes.
And VAT.
No, only income tax.
Income tax.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless if they've changed something, I'm not aware of it. But
Okay.
from what I gather is and that is another thing why we're pushing for cooperatives, right?
Okay. All right. I think that's clear there from Yosefo. There's a question from Sosiveta. Sosiveta, would you like to unmute and ask your question directly to Yosefo? Okay, while we wait for Sosiveta, we've got Lani. Lani, go ahead. You'll just need to unmute. We can't hear you at the moment.
Zola, I'm Lani and I'm running our Matangali business up at Tavuni Hill Fort. It's a historical site. And these climate changes we're facing, the site is affected due to soil erosion, which is a quarter part of the fort being washed away. So is there a way which we could get like assisted or a financial assist us to help to tackle this problem we are facing due to soil erosion? The problem is this soil erosion caused by the Fiji Sugar Corporation, which they dynamite the food of the fort so that the railway can run through. Is there any chance we can get help from the tourism or ecotourism, as Mr. Ayosefo is there, to protect our historical site from being washed away?
Unfortunately, I'm just trying, while you are asking your questions, I'm just trying to think of the grant that we have in terms of the criteria. But that's a very point that you raised over there. Unfortunately, right now, in terms of, I was just thinking of all the grants that we have, there's nothing on that. But I would like to send, that is in Nandi, right? Singatoka. Okay, I will get our manager West, I think Roseli, Eleanor, I think knows Roseli very well. And I will get your contact after this so that they can come in, look at your site, and then maybe they will have a fair idea where we can direct you in terms of the assistance with regards to you, the issue that you have on the ground. I think it's a unique one, and we'll see how best we can address that. So, okay, I've got your contact. After this, we'll call you and discuss that, and then I will get Roseli and our cooperative team also in Singapore to come in, see you, the issue on the ground with you, and then how best we can advise you going forward.
Vinaka Yosefo. Look, I think we've actually run out of time, team. So I'll probably just. Sorry, so
yeah.
Okay, so you come on, yeah. Go ahead with your question.
Okay. I just have a question for Yosefo. Just regarding Minister for Micro, Small and Media Enterprise. He mentioned in Parliament on Tuesday, on Monday, sorry, about the MSA bill and act to be reviewed. I just have a few questions on how this will review and these changes will affect SME sector. Basically, from your side, what do you want and what are some challenges you face at the moment, the whole micro, small enterprises face at the moment? I would just like, just to get your feedback on what it's like in the current progress and what are some challenges you face as in council for that.
Yeah, maybe just because we are. Thank you so much, Josibeta, for that question. And I know it's but maybe you could we could connect you directly with Joseph or Josibeta on that. Unfortunately, we're just running out of time.
Otherwise, I'll have the whole day explaining that. We can get the number.
I'll put your email in.
So we'll put Yosef's email on the chat group so you can contact him directly. I hope that's okay. I think because we've just run out of time, just any last comments from our panel? Yosef and Sabe?
And I think just going back to the cooperative one, the reason why we're pushing this on the ground, because notice a change in government now, that our ministry is now known as Ministry of Trade, Cooperatives and MSMEs. Before these two, they used to be hidden down, right, under commerce. So now they're on the forefront. So you can see in terms of the strategies where the government is going, there will be a lot of pushing to this in terms of MSMEs together with the cooperatives. So this is why we are really pushing this on the ground, because the training, the system, the monitoring, even the ground, put it that way, will come through this angle, right? So just putting in the floor. Before, this was on the sideline ages ago.
Okay.
And if you need more awareness on the MSMEs, our grant together with the cooperative, please do not hesitate to send us an email or call us. We can come down to your committee. We've got all our offices in the divisions out there.
Okay. Thank you, Yosefo. I think Matilita, we can send that question directly to Yosefo, and we can respond to you. Sabe?
Yeah, just something on the liabilities. I want to talk about our liabilities in terms of our council. We had problem with this. We had so many times, so many years, we've written submissions to NGOs and to other donors trying to help us on the premiums, and left the farmers to pay the actual premium every year. But the principal what you paid by them. But we couldn't get one. they could not agree with our terms till today. But there was one of the paramedics insurance is here. It's only $1,000. You can pay $100 and any disaster, you immediately entitled for $1,000. That's the only one we have right now. So there is nothing on agriculture. We're still trying to find a equipment that can be catered for. So that is something that we're still looking at, and hopefully we'll find one.
Nakasabe, yeah, I think we can definitely connect maybe MSME Fiji and yourself to UNCDF, because I know that this is an area that they're very keen on supporting, kind of the development of insurance products. So perhaps that's a conversation that you could follow up with Vineal at UNCDF direct.
Naka. Eleanor? Last comments from you, Eleanor and Maria?
Vinaka, thank you everyone for such an interesting discussion. We're just looking forward to joining you all in walking the talk, walking the Talanoa. Naka.
Naka. Eleanor?
Yeah, Vinaka Bakalevu for this forum. I look forward to more talks on this as we try and do tourism in the areas we live in. Thank you so much. Vinaka Bakalevu.
Naka. And so sorry, Sachiko had to leave us for another meeting. So again, like I want to say thank you very much. I'm going to to our fantastic panel of experts. And thank you so much to the audience for your wonderful questions. And I'll give the floor back to Jyoti. Naka.
Thank you, Alice. A very interactive discussion today. And we have taken note of all the issues and suggestions from the participants, and we will be discussing this at management level for our way forward. So colleagues, we have come to an end for today's webinar session, and on behalf of the Ministry of Tourism and the Fiji government, please allow me to thank everyone for joining us, especially to our panelists for sharing their experience, ideas, and views on the topic, to our development partner IFC for providing their support, and to our participants, thank you for your contribution towards the discussion, and we look forward to further support for the upcoming PBDs. Our next session will be on Wednesday, 22nd February on product and experience development. So see you all next week. Vinaka.
Naka.
Naka, everyone. Mole.
Mole.